This is the theme song for the live stream of consciousness. You've got to ask yourself whether reality is a dream or if you are dreaming reality. We are all a part of the answer to the meaning of it all. Come in and join us for the moment we call now. Rise up, join in, raise the whole vibration. You are the master of reality's creation.
Welcome to Creating Reality. It all happens here in the live stream of consciousness. Now let's welcome your host of the moment, Michael Zinn.
Hello and welcome to the live stream of consciousness. Yes, I am your host, Michael Zinn. That is a little over the top, that intro. I got to tone it down a little bit. I asked that guy last week, I said, can you just tone it down a little bit? But I forgot he's a video, so I've got to actually do that. So what's happening, everybody? You made it. I made it. We are here again, creating reality in the moment. It is Thursday. It is February 12th. We are in the second week of February, and things are going all right. I mean, you know, it depends on where you're looking. There are certain places that might look like a dumpster fire, but things are going all right in here. Things are going amazing in the world of being loving. I think if you're practicing and living from the heart, then you're probably not experiencing all the craziness out there as much as everybody else is. I saw Bernadette was out there. I see Leela is here. What's up, Ninja Kitty? Good to see you. I see me and my shadow. Me and my shadow. What's happening? I love seeing you in the audience because I always get that in my head when I see you. We are about to embark on a cool conversation with a returning champion to the live stream of consciousness. I'm excited for that. Before we do that, you know what time it is. It's that romper room time where I put up the thing and I say, hey, I see Joey, I see everybody, except what we do is we connect with each other through breath. We do 3 breaths together. It's pretty simple. It's in through the nose, a little bit of a hold at the top, and then an intentional release. A lot of times I'm in a class, a meditation class or a yoga class, and it's they actually push it out with a little bit of sound, and it really does feel good. And breathing is fundamental, right? Breathing connects you to life, and normally it's just happening. You're not thinking about it. I think that when you intentionally think about your breath in and out, and you do it with intention, it just, you feel it, and physiologically you feel it even in 3 breaths. So it's going to be less than 60 seconds, you guys. But here's my trusty bowl sage. We're going to do the 3 breaths together. Here we go. In through the nose. Hold it at the top for a second, and then push it out, let it out, feel it. Breathe in through the nose. Nice deep one. Hold it up at the top for a second. Release. Feel it, release. Feel it leave your body. All that stuff you don't need. All right, one last one. Here we go. Hold it up at the top for a second. Hold it a little bit extra. Hold it, and release. You can feel it. I love it. I'm gonna let Sage finish ringing out here. Again, I know you guys probably don't hear it. I hear it. I hear her. She's still singing here. I don't like to just put her down while she's singing. And here we go. Nice. Beautiful. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Sage. So here we are. I'm ready for this. We're digging deep. I just want to say before we get started, that I really love being here. I really love you guys showing up here and just contributing your energy and your intention to this moment, right? I think the big theme for me for this year is creating our reality, right? We create our own realities by just what we intend to do, what we do, what we feel. Our essence creates our reality, right? If we're angry, we get an angry reality. If we're happy, we get a happy reality, and we get to choose. And that's really my message to everybody. That's really what I try to purvey when I do this show. And I have these amazing guests on who have amazing experiences in life and great stories to tell. And I think we all have a little bit of advice that we can give to each other about how to navigate this three-dimensional existence together. And part of that is through, I think, acknowledging outside of the three-dimensional existence. And tonight's guest has some experience right up that alley. So I'm excited to welcome back to the live stream of consciousness, returning champion Jacob Cooper. How you doing, Jacob?
Hi, Michael. What an intro. Wow, I'm feeling uber zen, or should I say zen for tonight, but a
Awesome.
little dad joke over there without having kids, yeah.
You know what? You don't even know because you probably don't watch my show that much, but I always ask for dad jokes at the end. I'm like, "Hey, do you got any words of
Oh,
advice, love, or any dad jokes?" And you just made my day.
I've never said that once in a podcast, so
You nailed it.
yeah, we're not gonna mic drop just yet. There's a lot more to go, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. And anybody who watches my show knows that I'm always saying, "Hey, you got any dad jokes before you go?" That's
Kind
awesome.
of
I love it.
encapsulates my life as a near-death experiencer. We go to the very end and kind of cheat life, if you will, and then we
And
go
then
back to
back.
our own life. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. And Ninja Kitty is saying, "Welcome back, J Poop." So, the last time you were here, we talked about your experience. I asked you what you thought consciousness was. The show has kind of taken a little bit of a different turn, although we still, I mean, I love those conversations. We love to explore, what is reality outside of, this three-dimensional meat suit, people like to call it. Why don't you just refresh the memory of anybody who hasn't seen you before as far as like when your near death experience was, just like a short version of it, and then we'll get into the new
Mhm.
book and where that
Yeah.
took you.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have one today that I know of. I know some near-death experiencers are very cat-like and they have 9 or 10 lives. I think we have thousands or hundreds of lives per se, but I only had one, and one was more than enough in this lifetime. My near-death experience was really September 1993. I was just a young age of 3 years old, so that's when I had mine, and I completely suffocated as a result of pertussis, otherwise known as whooping cough, where I lost all ability to breathe on a human level. But what I found past, that extinction was the breath of eternity, this eternal breath that we all are created from, that we're all forever connected to, which is our spirit, our spiritual selves. And, that I knew existed far beyond just this body. And I was able to encounter beings kind of like that a little bit behind my shoulder, and angels that I saw, spirit guides or guardian angels, soul pods, soul groups, awareness of previous incarnations, and I had premonitions for these types of conversations that we're having today and the work that I'm doing. So I think, if people ask me what's the biggest takeaway of your NDE, and there's a lot, but I say that in looking back on it, this is something that's recently happened to me a bit more than before, which is, why I decided to stay was really, I saw my life, in advance, and I saw the work that I would be doing. And that really outweighed any transcendental experience that I would have on the other side. And I say,
Mhm.
the most expansive thing that we could have in our lives is just being of service to others. That's
Yeah.
really a beautiful thing.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And what's interesting is a lot of near-death experiencers and people who kind of have these, fantastic experiences come back with that same kind of message, right? And that same sentiment, like we're all here to help each other. And it's interesting, I think, especially in this moment, right? I was talking about it a little bit in the intro, just about this moment, and it's a sensitive thing, right? I'm very intentional with my energy and my essence, and I don't really like to go there necessarily, right? But I don't like to ignore what's going on, right? I certainly like to give it respect in a way, I guess is the right word. Um, for it being a part of duality, a part of reality, right? But kind of like you said, you came back with this mission, you saw your life, you saw the help that would come from you doing what you do and how many people it would help and how many people it would reach. And that's what I see in this community, in this kind of work, which is really to me a testament of why I do it, why I exist within this community and try to promote people like you in the community because that's the way I can serve, right? Is because I don't necessarily practice mediumship or anything like that, but my witness to it, right, is powerful in my transmission of bringing on conversations like this. I feel like is really important, and what's great is I think all of the people that have been coming back in the audience, for the last couple of years are ready for these conversations. So that's why, I don't need to ask what is consciousness anymore. You know what I mean? I feel like we've gotten so many answers that all tied together, all made sense. It became very evident that life is an individual experience and everybody has their individual experience, which is again why I love doing this so much and bringing
Yeah.
on people to talk about this stuff. um so you're living a pretty fulfilled life, I would imagine, just by the way you described your experience since your near death experience.
Yeah, it took a long time to get there, for
Hmm.
sure. But these days it really does feel, um, that I'm hitting that, that I'm able to lean into that. And I do believe, like I said, when you're able to be of purpose and uh, you know, about yourself and having a life that goes beyond yourself, amazing things happen in this reality. And that's really, what I'm kind of experiencing these days is just, planting seeds and seeing some of the growth in some of the people that I connect with. You know.
Well, you've been doing this for a couple of years, and so now I can imagine what you're saying, like seeing people that maybe you worked with a couple of years ago and how they've evolved just from kind of the experience that they had with you. I remember, I met you, you were kind of a few years back, you were, speaking on stages and kind of, telling your story and also practicing mediumship. Which is something that I believe what kind of came after the near death experience, your connection with all of the things that you described that you connected with. You kept that connection, and now you kind of offer that connection to others.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and I know for me, I love that. I think I discussed this with you. I love being in those environments. The show that I did with you and Christopher Allen, I remember that night so well because I just love being in that energy exchange. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for my own answers or connections, but watching healing happening is really amazing for me. So thank you for those experiences and being able to witness that. I've worked with you a couple times, and documenting that kind of stuff, and it's just I love it so much.
Hmm.
Um, but why don't you tell us a
Thank
little
you.
bit about from your side? I always felt when I was watching a healer do their thing that I was actually watching healing going both ways. So, do you
Mhm.
feel that? Do you feel like when you're working with somebody, do you heal a little bit yourself each time?
Absolutely, and I think the key is sometimes I just posted this today that the Beatles once said, "I am he, and you are me, and you are me, and we are all together." And
I
I
love
think
that.
really what that was referring to was this oneness that we're all a part of, this philo that we're all connected to. And so
Hmm.
when I do, experience someone else, the way I try to live my life with the we consciousness, or that there's really just one person existing in the room, if you will.
Hmm.
And that's really where I try to live my life from as much as I can. That what you do to another, you do to yourself. But
Yeah.
Ram Dass, once asked, like, if he heals people, or what does he experience? And he just says, it's like being on a seesaw, like you're all together in the stance, and he doesn't see himself as separate from the other person that he was working with. And that's
Right.
the way that try to live my
Beautiful.
life as much as possible.
I love that. That's beautiful, and I think that's in the spiritual community and in what you do. I'm sure you realize there's a lot of you got to use discernment, right? There's a lot of people out there kind of saying that they're doing this stuff, but they aren't necessarily doing it. But exactly what you just said is the authenticity part that I love, right? Like that's how I know it's authentic. You know what I mean? When you can tell that the person is there with you. You know what I mean? And not like they're not they don't even feel like they're healing you, right? They're like going through the healing with you. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That's amazing. Yeah, and Karen says that's a great analogy, the seesaw analogy, I think.
Yeah.
Is a
Hmm.
great analogy. Wow.
Hmm.
So, all right. So
Yeah.
the last time we spoke about your first book, Life After Breath, where you talk about your near-death experience. But the new book is more about your journey since then, and kind of the lessons that you have to bring to other people. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like when you have a great, experience of your life, some people could just internalize that, and other people could be really driven to take people with them and share them, with them on their journeys. And
Hmm.
that's what I really try to do as much as I can. But Jesus himself, famously once said that the kingdom of heaven in me is in you too. So, essentially, you get to this beautiful top of the mountain. You could be there. It's a lonely place. So you could come down from it and share that with others. And that's really what I try to do as much as I can with my life, is to empower other people. And I think the beautiful part of near-death experiencers, what they live out their full journeys, is that they don't um, have the other side as something that they teach others, but rather they see it as a mirror from what other people already remember within themselves, if you will, and know.
Mm,
So that's what I try to do, is just have this experience as a mirror, but also a lot of people in their lives. You think of people who are, let's say, about living their lives or thinking about retirement their whole lives, and they're building their whole life to this very end, and they're like, okay, once I get to that place, then I'll be aware. Then I'll enjoy my life and stuff like that. And we
right.
live that life too with spirituality. And so I think part of the near death experience intentionality is not waiting to get there, knowing it's a safe eternal ending, but we're eternal beings and we go on. And we could live that way in the present and the here and the now as well too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually an important part, not that everybody needs to have a near death experience, but I think kind of that coming to terms with what death is, right? I think a lot of people fear death as like that's it, right? The plug is pulled, the lights go out, and that's it. And I think that the people that I know who believe in an afterlife, believe in non-physical realm, believe in an essence of soul, you know what I mean? I think those people just kind of find it easier to navigate and don't live with those fears, you know. Um, I'm imagining you
Yeah.
find the same thing.
Yeah, I think beliefs have a big role in influencing our behaviors. And if
Mhm.
we view that, once the body goes, so does life go, I could understand the rational fear that people have of death. That makes complete sense.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
think if you understand that we're not these bodies, that we go on, beyond this body, then that fear dissipates a little bit because you understand that, it's just, going from one room to the next. And it's not something to fear, but, you look forward to it. You embrace it. But I think you have to embrace all phases of life and transformations that come your way and trust in the natural unfoldment of things.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome. Yeah, and I feel like um kind of all together with everything you said, right? Like living in service and kind of telling people it's all right, and I feel like there's movement, a moment happening right now in humanity where, you're kind of on this in this wave of kind of light workers, right? They call. I'm not a big fan of all of the terminology, right? But that's. I mean, that's really. It's almost like a metaphor, right? I mean, that's really what you're doing. You're bringing light into the darkness, and I feel like one of the things that I had started doing and I forgot to do it with you was instead of what is consciousness, the question that I like to ask at the beginning of the show is, what are you most excited about in this moment?
Hmm. What am I most excited about in this moment? Um, I would just say being with the moment, being present, not trying to bypass it.
Mhm.
I had someone that I knew that was, he was, his soul was about to leave his body and he, was about to go. And he was like, you're the ultimate guy to talk to because about what's next to come and everything like that. And what I said to him, and he was looking for advice in what he was going through, knowing a couple of days from now he was going to go, and he just asked me like, "What advice would you give me?" I say, "Just be in the moment. That's all that we have in front of us. That moment you'll find is eternal, but just be here now." So many people are waiting for happiness, or their form of happiness is once things work out, then I'll find my joy. But really, it's the opposite. It's once you find your joy, then you'll see things working themselves out. So it's all
Brilliant.
about your direction, positionality, things of that nature. But I think,
Yeah.
you asked me like, what's my ultimate joy? It's being in the here and the now with loving awareness, compassion, and seeing things on a deeper level, and not taking things for granted. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love what you just said. It's so true. And I think it's unfortunate, I think it's definitely a part of the way society runs right now, right? And I do feel like that's changing, which is what I'm most excited about. It is the whole idea of self-love, I think there are so many things that I think we are not taught that are the basics for like not only our own happiness, but like you said, serving others, right? Like the collective happiness of the planet, right? There are so many basic things that if they just taught you, right, in kindergarten, this would be such a much better place. But they don't teach us those things, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. And and it takes I think people like you who have gone through these experiences, right, to be like, hey, there is hope. There is something better than ourselves. There's something bigger. We're all part of something, right? I mean, it's a very difficult thing to wrap your head around. I mean, I talk about it all the time. I know in my heart that we are one, right? But
Mhm.
as a human being sitting here in my room talking across a computer screen to you, who's
Mhm.
really just a part of me, right? Like, how do I wrap my head around that as a human being? Is there any? Do you have an answer for that one?
No, absolutely. I think I use this exercise a lot, where I ask people to point to like who they are and how they see themselves, and a lot of people will point to that body in order to say, "Okay, you're that body," and kind of sit with that, and then we'll just say, "Okay, well, what happened to that body 5 years ago? What happened to that body when you were 10 years old, 15 years old?" So that thing that you're clinging to is constantly changing. So what is really that thing that you see yourself as? What is that thing? But on the bigger level, you see yourself as a body. Okay, well, this body is in a chair. It's in a room. It's in a house. It's an apartment, wherever it is. It's on a spinning planet. So around the sun. So on a just physical basis, we're infinitely bigger than how we see ourselves. And just imagine then the things that we don't see or we're not aware of. And I think that's important. I made a post, earlier about, some of my background working in mental health and psychology. And, as infants, one of the greatest milestones that people could have is something called object permanency, which was developed by a psychologist named, Jean Piaget. And he really put a understanding that what object permanency is when you attach yourself to an object, be it a parent or whatever, you don't see it immediately, but you understand that that thing that you don't see still exists, is still there, even though it's not in your physical, vicinity. And I think for spirituality, the same applies. Just because you can't see things, hear things right in front of you, or touch them, it doesn't mean it's not, there. And I think that's a part of remembering that we're not just these physical beings, and there's more memories that we have, and awareness that goes beyond just the physical, if that makes sense.
Yep, well, of course it does. Of course it does. And what's great is, like I was saying, I feel like, we are creating a tribe of people who we can say that kind of stuff with and not really have to explain it. I think everybody
Hmm.
in this audience, in the Sacred Spiral audience, the show that I do, Holding Space, it's great because we're having conversations all kind of coming from this same point of view, right? That we are spirits and essences having a human experience, and just kind of, that's the baseline, right, for the conversation. Because with all of the different points of views these days, it's very difficult to have a civil conversation. And I just, again, I feel like this is the most important thing that we can offer to each other, right? And to others, is having these conversations and
Hmm.
allowing people to feel it and be a part of it, and, intentionally having conversations about the collective and the value of all of that.
Hmm.
Karina says, I love meditating and going into the cosmos. So beautiful. um, and Evelyn says, you gave the most valuable advice. Love yourself as if you were that baby many moons ago, and have the love and self-compassion as if you were the little one. And Evelyn's referring to a story where I realized, for me, what brought me to the place I am, is looking at myself in the mirror, right? And not being happy with who I was, and or not, there was some sort of disconnect, right? In many, many years ago. And I realized that even though I've never had a child, I have nephews. I know what it's like, to see a child come into the world, and for a parent to look at that child, right, as the most perfect being that they could see. Um, and that's what I felt I needed to see in the mirror. When I passed a mirror, I needed to look in the mirror and see myself as if I was gazing at my own child.
Yeah.
And that's what she's referring to. And
Hmm.
again, I think that's just such an important part of not only being happy, but being a productive, serving part of the collective.
Yeah.
Because
It's yeah.
you can't love anybody else if you don't love yourself.
That's it's almost kind of like a Louis Hay type exercise that you would have. And yeah, the world is your mirror, and what you focus on becomes your reality, and you're focused on judgment on this, on not that. That's certainly the world that we were programmed to. But yes, it comes down to a lot of inner child stuff. You think about it, when he came to this planet, I always say, you weren't say, oh, he's to this, he's to that. It was most likely like, wow, what a beautiful gift to the world, and we're so lucky to have this, being in our lives and stuff like that. But somewhere down the road,
Hmm.
you start to inherit this degree of conditional love toward yourself, and that's not your fault. I think we came here to embody unconditional love and learn what that's like. And I think if to understand God is to really embody and understand that which is unconditional, because God is this being that radiates love and eternal force without asking for anything in return. And I think for ourselves, that's really what it's about: is giving to others, giving to ourselves unconditionally, and loving ourselves without asking anything from life other than just giving love.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it's interesting too, as you're speaking, I'm remembering the moments in my life where I became aware of that, right? Even the thought of unconditional love, and feeling it and being aware of it. And then, it's funny because I talk to my wife about this all the time. I'm a human being, right? So there are moments where I'm being judgmental, right? I'm
Mhm.
seeing somebody, they're maybe doing something that I don't agree with, and I'm judging them. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling it because of that mirror thing, right? Like you said, like if you hurt somebody, you're just hurting yourself. We're all one. And
Mm,
so if you judge somebody, you're judging yourself. And
yes.
and I feel that all the time when I start to get judgmental in conversations, even at home with my wife, because I mean, for the most part, I'm very, very intentional with that energy, like yourself, right? And
Right.
that has provided me with that life, that essence, right? I'm not an angry person, so the life around me isn't angry. You know what I mean? I'm not a judgmental person for the most part. So I don't experience that stuff coming back at me because, as within, so without. And again, it's just like these simple things. And so you have the opportunity to stand up on stages. People come to see you because they want to hear about your experience. And now you have the second book that you wrote, and on top of that, we recently worked together. I filmed. You were doing a masterclass. Who was that for?
It was for an organization called Humanities Team, which was started by Neil Donald Walsh and now a gentleman by the name of Steve Farrell, kind of oversights it. But it's just this beautiful organization. It's kind of like, a little bit like the Shift Network, if you will. It's just a great
Mhm.
collection of conscious teachers that speak about different inspiring topics or areas of spirituality, and we just have these different courses that we have and give over hopefully helpful material. And I think it's so good to have that because so much of our life is predicated on the quality of our information or the quality of our focus. And if if we have alternatives to these things such as your channel and all these other opportunities, people are able to really broaden what their focus could be, and what the
Yeah,
channels that they're tuning into, literally and metaphorically. So I think
yeah,
that's the beauty of living today is we have so many different options for people out there. But yeah, it's like, what do you want to focus on? That becomes your experience. But this is a beautiful collection of teachers. You have people like Michael Beckwith, who's on there, and Greg Braden has courses with Humanities Team. It's just,
wow.
really they have some
I was going
some
to say
heavy
you're in good
hitters there.
company there. Yeah, a lot of impressive people there, as well as yourself. I mean, listen, I've seen you speak,
Yeah.
and I know the power of Jacob Cooper,
But
in
no,
in
yeah,
person.
yeah, it doesn't come from me, it comes from the
Right.
universe. I'm just a conduit, I'm just a vessel. But if people do see greatness, I think that's wonderful. But I think it's
I
more
love that.
important that they see that within themselves. Like I'm just a mirror for what they see. I'm really like anyone else who's just trying to figure out this life as much as I can and
I love
enjoy this time on my planet as
Jacob.
much as possible.
I love your humility. I love it, and that again to me is the authentic thing. It's like listen, I'm no guru, right? I can tell you what I've experienced, right? And if it helps, great. If it doesn't, find someone
Mhm.
else to ask, who you can relate to, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And that's the thing, right? Not everybody's going to relate to everybody else's experience. Um, I think another important thing that we're saying here, and this again, this is part of my message all of the time, is you know you're so in control of what you experience based on your thoughts and how you're feeling. And I think that once you get a little bit of awareness of that and a taste of how that works, it becomes part of your essence, and it becomes part of your practice, right? Like you said, you live very intentionally. You just try to do the things that you do. You're not trying to be any sort of celebrity or anything like that. You just want to get your message out, and you want people to know, that it's not difficult. And again, the reason that I'm on the same kind of mission as you is because you look around and you do see a lot of people struggling with mental health, with all sorts of issues. You know what I mean? And it's really, I think, working on yourself is where you got to start. And I think people are always looking outside for the answer. What's got to change?
Yeah.
Almost like you were saying, like when I get here, I'll be happy. You know what I mean? Like that's almost like that's really rough, I think, for people like you and me to hear other people say, right? Because we know it's like you're not gonna get anywhere until you're here now in the moment. That's where you've got to be first before you can even think about going anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. I think for at least, people ask me in your work, how do you see yourself? I first say I see myself as a student of all these things. But
Mm,
when I do get into that role in front of people, what I say is most important is A, to be yourself, but also don't be Chat GPT up there. Don't be intellectual.
mhm,
The greatest teachers that I know of in terms of gurus or teachers, they're very heart centered. They are very authentic. They're very genuine. They don't come with like this uncle type mentality, like I know better than you, or look at me, I'm great and you're not kind of thing.
right.
They're very warm, engaging, and genuine and down to earth. And that's
Yeah.
really, what I try to do because that is palatable. People could see that and they'd be like, oh, yeah, I could do that. Yeah. But when someone feels that someone is putting themselves on a pedestal, that is could be very disempowering on one's spiritual path, their spiritual journey. And so I think, just being yourself allows people to be more comfortable to do that too.
Mm, absolutely, 1,000,000%. I feel that too, and that's why sometimes like I'll comment about about the intro that I made. Like, wait a second, I'm just a guy, right? Like, here's your host, Michael Zinn, right? It's like, wait a second, I'm just a dude. And Courtney says, "I once was you." Ooh, I love that, Courtney. I love that.
Mhm.
I remember I encountered a video many years ago. There was this guy. Oh my goodness, what was his name? Something Waters, and it was "I Am Another Yourself," and it was exactly just kind of a like little uh, poem about realizing that we all are each other, right? And like again the things that we're talking about, non-judgment, being able to look at someone. I can remember all of a sudden, kind of in my own journey, moments change, these different kind of levels that I achieve, where it's like once you kind of make certain realizations, you can't go back, right? You're like, oh wow, this is the way it is. And
Yeah.
I can remember starting to see reflections of myself, in others wherever I went. And, whether it was a good reflection or a bad one, I was recognizing it.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that? Do you feel like uh, any words of advice on being able to see your reflection in others and how that might help?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is a little bit of shadow work that's become a lot more mainstream with social media and stuff like that. But that I think a lot of that too is really predicated on the work of Carl Jung. But I think if
Mm,
not always, but if there's something in someone else that you're judging, usually it could be something unresolved within the self and a part of you to work out. And I think once you're able to make peace with that, there's more bandwidth and tolerance for other people. But it just
mm,
takes practice. So yeah, that's dichotomizes the me consciousness and the we consciousness. And yeah, and finding that radiance, finding that ability to love the things, especially that are inconvenient on the surface or difficult. That's very
mm.
important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the work that you do, I can't even imagine there's even the slightest room for judgment, right? I'm sure people come to you in all sorts of situations, you know what I mean? Like, with respect, without respect, and you've got to navigate that. What is that like?
I say, people ask me, what is your job? And sometimes it's titled as a therapist, but I say I'm a monk with health insurance. That's kind of what I do. And by that, I mean, it's really about learning how to be present, how to lead with compassion, how to observe and not absorb, how to lead with empathy and not judgment, and,
Mm,
how to believe in something when at times there's all logical reason to pull alarms or have disbelief. And so, if I didn't believe that a client could get through the situations, I wouldn't be in the field that I am. There's always that ability of hope and belief that everyone has the ability to take charge and make changes of their life. But that's it's certainly the work that I do. I don't separate from the person that I am or try to be.
Mhm.
It's really learning unconditional love and observing one's journey and empowering them to evolve, to grow, and to learn. So yeah, it's I think within this new age, there's a great deal of stigma in mental health, perhaps, or maybe bypassing it, or just seeing it as not glamorous, and certainly parts of it cannot be. But I think our ascension starts with dealing with the roots too. It's very hard um,
Mhm.
for the beautiful trees and the canopies of the trees to grow and to remain healthy without the roots anchored deeply as well too. So reach up to the
Mhm.
heavens, but also don't forget to be grounded and don't bypass that as well.
Right. Right. Great advice. Great advice. I don't know why, for some reason in my head as you're talking, I'm thinking of this story, so I guess I'm supposed to just say it out loud and get your response to it. Um, and that is, as a psychic medium, I was hosting a show for Grace Grella for a while, Grace.
Oh wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and I was hosting a show, and we would actually field phone calls. So people
Yeah.
would call it. It was like an old school call-in show, and
Mhm.
people would call in, and there was one episode, one caller in particular, who was like very difficult, right? Like was saying all of these things, and then Grace would offer advice and kind of wisdom, and then they'd be like, yeah, but this, and then it was like a few times
Mhm.
back and forth. What do you do in those situations when somebody isn't just doesn't want to receive?
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, in terms of mental health, what I try to do is mm, I really try to figure out with the clients like what their goals are. What is their goals? Like, what are they trying to do? Is it to be happier, more filled with joy, less angry? And then if that is their goal, we have to be honest with some of their values as well, which shapes their goals. But at a certain point, we have to be honest with some of our approaches. And what we try to do is really understand what's skillful, what's helpful, or what is maladaptive. I think it's very important to normalize habituated behaviors, but also understand that when there's no changes, there's no changes. So I don't mind professionally utilizing confrontation in a gentle, respectful, and skillful way. If it does
Hmm.
work with
Hmm.
with their stuff. But I do think at times there's important for allowing the clients to lead and allowing for them to figure things out. That's also valuable as well. But I think the
Right.
kind of therapy that I have is more solution focused, and we figure out like what are their goals. And so it's like I say, hey Michael, your goal is to go to a certain place. Well, there's these big monsters in the water, and if you give those monsters enough attention, it's going to derail you from getting to this
Right.
place. And
Mm.
so that's what we try to have with our clients, is to just constantly remember where they're trying to go, what they're trying to work on, and to understand some of the healthy patterns, but also um, understanding the value of what thoughts are and how they're really the value that we give them.
Hmm.
And that's where diffusion comes into play. Uh, and also really exploring some of the change process and how doing things a little bit differently could be quite scary. And people would rather do things that are unhealthy but habituated than
Hmm.
healthy than unhabituated. And that's really where things come into. I think so. I think in short, a lot of
Hmm.
it is exploratory, but also focusing on what's adaptive and helpful towards their given goals. I think, to me, someone asked me like, how do you define mental health? And I refer to the work of Charles Darwin, where I say, someone asked Charles Darwin, how does species continue? And he said, it's not the strongest, the fittest, it's those that are most adaptable to change and flexible with changes. And that's what
Hmm.
I really try to install with my clients. With life is
Nice.
constantly changing, unpredictability, and what are you going to do that's adaptive towards changes? That's going to determine your resolve, resilience, your growth, and the quality of your life, if you will. So,
Yeah.
it's learning a lot of flexibility of thought and approach, and the humility to be able to open yourself up to new pathways.
Wow. Great answer. Wow. Yeah, it's very interesting. I have my own personal thoughts, right, about um what would I call this? I guess humanity, right? And where we are, and and in evaluating, what I see happening around me, and a lot of the struggles that I see. My life isn't a struggle, but I see the struggles that go on out there. I feel like the industrial age, I'm going way off the rails here, Jacob. The industrial age was kind of a turning point where things got a little too easy for us. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And we became disconnected from the earth, right? And living off of the earth, as farmers or whatever. Like, all of that stuff was done for us. You ask a 13-year-old, where their food comes from. They have no clue, what that process is, for the most part. I guess, like the mainstream America, obviously, there are people who grow up in that environment still. Um, but I feel like that's where we need to go back. For me, I was always, my whole life, I've always been like, man, I just want to go live on a farm, and like that's where I feel like I'd be happiest, just kind of not taking care of myself, but understanding survival on a closer level, right?
Hmm.
We live a very, very comfortable life in this day and age, and
Right.
and sometimes we take it for granted. A lot of these things that I think are important to understand. Um, I don't remember why I started going in that direction, but
Right.
I
Mhm.
do feel like that's that's part of coming to terms with being happy and being able to navigate is kind of having reverence for those things. You know what I mean? Um, I do have a question coming in from Karina. She says, Jacob, when do you see people making changes within do you see when people are making changes within themselves that is more positive, spiritual, etc., that for some reason they're also shedding people where the people that don't fall into the same line that are not positive and kind, etc.? Okay, I think I see what you're saying. Not saying anything negative about them. They're positive, but they don't align with the person. So I guess the question is about people evolving spiritually and then people in their lives kind of not
Hmm.
relating to them anymore, or kind of not understanding where they're coming from. um
Hmm.
so I don't know if that's a question, Karina, but I guess do you see when people, so what's your response to that? I mean, what do you tell
Yeah.
people who are maybe you're working with who all of a sudden are experiencing people who are like not relating to them anymore or something?
Yeah, I think in all walks of our life, sometimes we experience that where, we're in grade school and maybe we're at the same level as other people, but then we, morph and change and evolve. And, sometimes too, as adults, it happens too, where we tap into something, our values change, and, there's a shift. So I think it's very important. I think to me, joy happens where you're living congruently with your values. And if for you, as you're changing, your values may change. And I think it's important to surround yourself with those that may not hold the same values, but at least respect and may not judge those values. Because I think for a lot of people, they um, have a hard time being themselves if everyone around them is not supportive to their values, and they
Hmm.
feel
Hmm.
constantly judged. Ultimately, you
Hmm.
have to be
Hmm.
comfortable. That's most important. Number one, with
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
new life and your new self. And when you're more comfortable with
Right.
that, you're more comfortable for the breathability of other people, or what I call what's called kind of non-interference. And so I think when people are
Hmm.
evolving, sometimes what happens is they could judge or look down on other people. But I think it's just important to see people as unfolding, in their own organic ways. And sometimes that may feel a little bit of stagnation or people go backwards. And it's a little bit depressing when you see that happen.
Hmm.
Sometimes
Hmm.
people age, in
Right.
reverse, in many ways. They're like more mature and heart-centered and soulful when you knew them at a certain point. Then it's just kind of like, where did that
Right.
person go? And the person I knew that had a heart, they had values, and sometimes it can be disconcerting. But I think it's controlling what you can't control, accepting what you can't, and understanding the value of people that you put in your life. Um, and being selective with those people and where you want to put them. I always give the analogy of like a swimming pool where we have a swimming pool and sometimes we have a parts of ourselves that are a little more shallow per se, and that we invite people, and sometimes we have deeper parts, and those that can handle the
Right.
deeper waters we invite. Not everyone can handle it, and it's not, we're
Right.
not always lifeguards are there to save them. It's just for them to kind of figure out, but to not take personally always.
Totally. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And as you were saying that, I had some things going through my mind recently. We had a conversation that kind of struck a nerve with some people, and I'm trying to figure out how to bring this up. But we had a conversation. It's related to what you're saying in that I think we're all human, right? And and
Mhm.
and that means we're not perfect. And as spiritual as we might be, and as great as we might be, there's also this part of us that may not be so great. And I think that a big thing of self-love is forgiving yourself, right? And understanding that that's a part of you, and almost looking at it, right? Evaluating it. How did it make you feel? Do you want to continue that behavior? Like you talk about that a lot with psychology and like learned behaviors, habitual behaviors. And we decide, right? You can't help somebody unless they want to help themselves, right? As a
Mhm.
therapist,
Yeah.
it's got to come from within that person, you know. Uh, again, I don't know. I'm kind of trying to keep up with the with the conversation in the chat room. And Courtney, when I said I didn't know where I was going, she says your train needs no tracks. You're reading intuitively. But we're going all over the place. If people can't love you as you are, whatever spiritual level you're out, you need to back away. People who love you no matter what. You need people who love you no matter what. Yeah,
Mhm.
I find that once you become more tuned to love, you are more specific with how that works, and you do understand that certainly there'll be people out there that you don't resonate with, and you can love them from a distance, right? You can still love and respect them, just because for me, I try to love everybody. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And it is not always so easy. Some people really they make it difficult.
Mhm.
But you know, as I learn more about myself, it's almost like I enjoy that challenge, right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to love you, even if I've got to do it from a distance.
Yeah.
And that's related to kind of what we were saying, people that may kind of not be growing with you, that you need to leave behind, maybe family members. A lot of times people, lose their family over kind of spiritual awakenings. You know what I mean? They start to change their beliefs, and their family just kind of can't keep up, or doesn't agree with them. But
Mhm.
you said it too. I think, when I think of a list of ingredients for like a happy life and a productive human being, authenticity is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And gratitude is another one, and humility, a lot of the things that we were kind of talking about tonight. Um, so let me ask you a question. These days, are you doing still like psychic mediumship? Do you still go out and do group readings, or are you more like doing one-on-one services, helping people? Like, where are you at these days? I want to put your website up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, you might be a psychic. I am not yet a psychic, but maybe down the road. I'm intuitive, but I've never actually have people think that. I don't know, maybe because I have like blue eyes or I look mystical or something, or I've never done actual group readings, but I think it's because I affiliate myself with a lot of the mediums that people think that. But a lot of these days I'm doing, what's called regression work, which really is a form of hypnotherapy, and it takes people into this deep and relaxed, trance-like states in hypnosis, which is really all about deep and relaxation. And we get people to
Well,
access, some of the biggest questions that they have, which is, who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? And where did I go? Where did I go when the body, is no longer? And so I do believe that spirituality is deeply associated with memory. I think people gravitate to
mhm.
spirituality because they remember that there is a part of themselves that goes beyond just this story in this life. They remember other parts of themselves that are beyond this body. And so I think really what I try to do is to help people to tap into their own memories so that they can cover a lot of these truths that they may not be always conscious of. So that's a lot of the work that I
Right.
do. But public speaking, a lot of organizations, podcasting, which I love, but unfortunately, I have been going through some internet issues as of late, and hopefully tonight's a little bit better. But yeah, I hopefully haven't been cutting in and out on the video here.
We,
But yeah,
your audio has been perfect. Once in a while, your picture will freeze, but you have not cut out at all.
yeah,
This has been, yeah, we've
yeah,
been totally having a
good,
continuous conversation. Yeah, people have are definitely
yeah,
hearing what's coming across, and I really appreciate you being patient.
yeah,
I know you're probably seeing yourself freeze and stuff.
yeah,
And then
yeah, a
I
lot.
just
Yeah,
want to go. Yeah. I just want to go back a little bit in the comments here. Um, Courtney said, "Don't lead anyone to the deep end that can't swim." um, that's funny. Very true. Thanks. If you start creating boundaries where there were none before, some people are not sure how to define your new relationship. Some people drop off. Some are more attracted. Yeah, Evelyn, that's definitely true. And I know for me, the Sacred Spiral Network, this show has definitely brought like-minded people into my circle, and I've had the honor of speaking to people who, I watch on social media and I invite on the show because they talk about consciousness or things like that. So, I think part of, what Jacob was talking about, being authentic is so important because then the people who are looking for you can find you. You
mhm.
know what I mean? I love that saying, to be who you're supposed to be because the people, you know, who you're looking for will find
They-
you. Uh,
yeah, real recognizes real, as they say. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Jacob, you're so much fun to talk to, and such an amazing, kind soul, humble. I love that so much. And I think about that too a lot, right? Because I saw somebody today who was on social media and they were talking about their follow count, and I'm like, I don't even know how many people follow me. Like, I don't look at that. I'm not doing this for that reason. Like, it's like I feel like I say it all the time. I feel like we all have a piece of the puzzle. I love inviting
mhm,
people on this show to hold up their piece of the puzzle, show us where it is, so that the people who are like, "Oh, wait, I think I can fit right next to that
mhm.
piece," or maybe that's not my taste, man. I'm over here in the puzzle. I don't fit over here. You know what I mean? But we all fit in the puzzle somewhere,
Yeah,
which is a great
like
and
anything else, it's a matter of the lens that you're coming at this. With spirituality, people could look at spirituality from the egoic lens, but certainly
hmm
people could come from it from the service lens or the God lens. And really, what that means is you're here not to like focus on how brilliant your light is and to fixate on that, but to understand this work is about people remembering how brilliant their light is, and that's what it really is about. It's we're all just a harbinger for good news and for people to just remember who they are. Simply as that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love when people put it like that we're remembering, because I do feel like we are eternal beings. We have experienced ancient times, right? And all of these things that we hear in stories. I do feel like imagination is actually where reality exists. So all of these things, tie together, and I think this is a great little world that we live in. And I really appreciate your time. Evelyn actually is saying, please have him back. So I know you've definitely your light has reached at least one of the souls in the
Well,
audience, if not many of them.
I've
And
reincarnated
Courtney
many.
says,
I've reincarnated many times in the live stream of consciousness, so maybe more coming. Yeah.
yes, there may be more coming. Definitely will. Courtney says, I believe if we pay attention to our antennas, we can all be psychic. It's a natural thing. We're just so busy these days. Yeah, we're definitely distracted. And that's why I think meditation is such an important thing, right? Because really what meditation is, it's just saying, I'm going to take this moment, I'm going to intentionally slow down, I'm going to pay attention to the moment, and I'm going to be in the moment. And
Yep.
that's the first thing that you said, Jacob, like what makes you excited? It's like being in the moment, being able to
Yeah.
know I'm here in this moment right now, and that's all that matters. Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
again, I appreciate you being here. Everybody's saying your people will find you. Might take a long time, but they will. Kim knows she's finding her people now. She was on the show live. We created reality. Kim, she started doing tarot recently and really feeling connected. Came on my show, told her story, and on the show got invited onto two other shows right in the
Wow.
moment. So create
Cool.
your own reality, folks. It's
Yeah.
all right here. It's
Beautiful.
all right here, you know. Um, Thank you, Jacob, once again for being here. Let me just open up my calendar real quick. I know I do have some things coming up next week. I have Brenda Lee from Attuned Guidance. Oh, she is awesome. Very cool. I'm excited for another conversation with her. And then the week after, we have Brian Lahr returning. So this has been a great month. I'm excited. Thank you for being a part of it. And we'll have you back again. Do you have
It's
any
a lot of fun.
dad
Thank you
jokes?
for all your
Do
tuning.
you have any
Dad
do you have
jokes.
any
I
dad
mean,
jokes? Yeah, you
I
said you
brought my
did.
I brought my fastball for you. I'll have to contact my cousin Caleb. He like on Facebook posts all these amazing dad jokes, and I love them. But yeah, he's the kind of I'm trying to think if like where's like the good. Yeah, I don't know. Most of the dad jokes that I have are not too PC for for this channel.
All
But
good. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to put you on the spot. All good.
yeah, yeah,
Kim says he's creating a bunch. Uh
yeah.
and actually for Kim Princess out there, I think it's two thumbs up. Let me see if that's right. Nope, that's the fireworks. Maybe it's two peace signs. Kim loves the balloons. There we go. She always tells me to
Yeah.
bring on the balloons. So there you go, Kim. There's the balloons.
Cool.
All right, my friends. I hope you guys have a happy Thursday, and we will see you guys again. Thanks, Jacob. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Peace. Whoa. Bye bye.
This is the theme song for the live stream of consciousness. You gotta ask yourself whether reality is a dream or you a dream or reality. We're all a part